Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. A while back I received some constructive criticism that some of the guides I have on my YouTube channel are more catered towards beginner players and not exactly new players. Brand new players tend to start at a little bit more of a basic level, and so I figured, hey, it's about time I step down to that basic level and make a couple guides catered towards the brand new players, because truthfully we love to see new players either discovering or rediscovering this amazing game Age of Empires 2 that we all love. And in this video I'm going to do just that. We're going to go ahead and take a step back and focus on the brand new players. So welcome to our game, welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to talk about the 4 resources in Age of Empires 2, what they do, what they are, how to collect them, and what they're useful for, as well as a few other tips and tricks that could help you out in developing your economy. This is the absolute basics of the game, because without resources you can't really do much, so it's important to understand how to collect them and how to use these resources in order to develop our base and get into the more active stages of the game. So to start things off, there are obviously 4 resources. We've got wood, food, gold, and stone. And now these resources tend to be limited in the sense that you can't have just unlimited access to these resources, and so you gotta have to manage them pretty well and understand which ones you want to go ahead and gather, because each of them have their own unique properties. We're going to talk about wood first, because this is the framework of our town and is essential in a lot of developments, and a lot of the starting ages revolve around wood. Now, wood is useful for making most buildings in the game, like farms, houses, essential buildings, military buildings, that kind of stuff that we need pretty much every game. It is also useful for creating some military units, and it's mostly very useful on water maps to create fishing boats and other navy, since those are very costly in the wood department. We can collect wood by chopping trees, and really that's the only way to get it, but that's okay, because trees are the most plentiful resource on most maps in this game. So you rarely run out of wood as long as you're relocating your villagers to other wood lines, and so even if you finish one wood line, you can go to the next one and continue taking wood around the map. Every tree has around 100 wood, and so one wood line can field you several thousand of this resource and can make for a lot of development in your base. Having wood is absolutely essential because it is closely linked to food, as we'll talk about in the next segment, and the relationship between wood and food is in the sense that if you don't have wood, you cannot get food, and that is speaking in long term. And so having wood is absolutely essential for the starting of the game and for the longevity of it as well. Now you can collect wood by either making a lumber camp right next to a wood line or using your town center as the drop-off point. Both of them work perfectly fine, but of course a town center is more expensive than a lumber camp and it's not available to build in Dark Age, so usually the lumber camp is going to be the preferred option to slap down on a wood line and start taking the trees with your villagers. You want to make the lumber camp as close as possible and in the middle of the wood line so that you get the best service area for villagers to work on. It is completely normal to have multiple lumber camps working at the same time with multiple villagers spread out between them, because wood is such an important resource that we can get quite a bit of it and still make use of it. The next important resource is food, and food might be the most important resource in Age of Empires 2, holistically speaking, because food is useful for creating villagers, most military units, and it's also really important for getting upgrades and especially going up to the next age, which costs the most amount of food. We can collect this resource by taking the naturally provided sources such as sheep, deer, boar, and berries, or by fishing deep sea fish or shore fish using either villagers or fishing boats that we talked about in the previous segment. However, when all of these natural sources of food have run out because they are quite limited in their quantity, we have a sustainable way to get food, and this is via farming. Farming lets us invest our wood into getting food, and it's actually a really good conversion ratio between wood to food. For example, the base farm converts 60 wood to 175 food, and if you get the upgrades at the mill, horse crawler, heavy plow, and then crop rotation, you can actually get much more food for your wood investment, and this is really good in the long run. To actually gather the food, we have a variety of ways to do so. For example, when taking hunt, sheep, boar, deer, we can just drop it at our town center in the early game, and then when you're taking berries, you can drop it at either a town center or a mill, but usually players would just make a mill next to the berries to gather them and not have to walk too much to drop them off. When it comes to farming in the mid and late game, or just farming whenever the natural food sources run out, then you definitely want to use farms right next to your town center and right next to your mill. You simply build a farm next to those 2 drop-off sites, and the villagers start working on the farm, and once they gathered 10 resources or 10 food, they just drop them off in the mill, then go back to continue working. This will happen for every farm that you have, and as long as you have mills and town centers rather close by, they'll be working pretty efficiently. The next resource that's important to talk about is gold. Gold is extremely useful for creating military units. It is used to field a large army and even get really important units like siege weapons and monks. Gold is also useful for getting loads of upgrades, especially in the military departments, and will also help you in aging up to the next age because especially Imperial Age costs a hefty amount of gold. And so gold is extremely important for all your military needs. We can collect this resource by mining the limited gold mines, which are a great source in the early game until they run out because they gather really fast. You do this by using your villagers to make a mining camp next to the gold mine and simply gather it up. But once the gold mines are finished, we have a few ways to gather gold that are more of like an infinite source, albeit at a different facility. We can do so by grabbing the relics, and this is done by using a monk and taking a relic and bringing it back to your monastery. Relics provide an infinite amount of gold, albeit at a very slow trickle. So it's great for the long run, but it's not going to give you a huge boost right away. We can also get an infinite source of gold by trading with either allies or enemies, although I do not suggest you trade with enemies because they can easily harass your trade routes. So when trading with allies in a team game, we can actually go ahead and make our markets in the corner, they make their markets in the corner, and we create trade carts from our market to their market, and what happens is the trade cart will go over, take gold from their market, and drop it off at yours. They will do this forever, as long as they're not disrupted by enemy raids, and so as long as we keep our trade route secure, we can have an infinite source of gold for the late game. The only caveat to the strategy though is that you need gold to create trade carts, and so you cannot start trading once you've completely run out of gold. You have to plan it in advance when you still have a little bit of gold to invest. Gold is usually the most important resource when it comes to late game strategies because it is fielding your most powerful units, and so the first person to run out of gold generally is at a pretty big disadvantage on the battlefield. Next up, we've got stone. This is a pretty important resource that is also limited similarly to the gold. We use stone for castles, towers, town centers, fortified walls, and other niche things like Victorias and a couple upgrades. But for the most part, it's creating our hefty structures, our defensive buildings that help keep our town fortified and safe. We can get stone in the exact same way we gather gold. We can build a mining camp near a stone pile and allow our villagers to collect the stone. However, unlike gold, we actually don't have an infinite way to get this resource, so stone tends to run out quite quickly. On top of that, every stone pile only has 350 stone, whereas every gold pile has 800 gold. And so stone is usually the first resource to run out, assuming players are going for it. We talked about how resources can be finite, and sometimes you have more resources in one field than the other. But don't worry, there's actually a solution to help you get resources even if you've completely run out of them, and that is the market. Now, the market is basically the link between all four resources, and the link to those four resources is actually the gold. And I'll explain how the market works because it's really important to understand the market because it helps you balance out your resources. And if you've got a surplus of one resource and none of another, you can sell some of that surplus and get some of the resource that you're lacking, which is extremely crucial and keeps you flexible in these games. So the link between all resources is the gold. You can use gold to buy any of the other three resources at the market, and if you don't have any gold, you can then sell any of the other three resources to get gold. Then using that gold, you can buy another resource. So gold is the chain between the four resources, and it is really what links you from one to the other. Keep in mind though that the market sounds really good, but it actually weakens its prices after each use, and this is each use by you or any other player in the game. So if there's 8 players in a 4v4, if anyone uses the market, everyone gets impacted. It is a global market that is affected by the trade of every player. And so generally speaking, it is really good to use it in the short run, but as you continue to use it, then the prices get really weak and it probably just isn't worth it at a certain point. That's going to do it for the guide on resources in Age of Empires 2. I hope you guys have learned something in this video, and I hope this video is useful for the new players out there. If you guys are new and you've made it to this point in the video, consider subscribing and liking this video as it helps me out a ton, and check out some of my other guides that I'll hopefully be making to help you guys develop and enjoy this game that we all love. Welcome to Age of Empires 2, guys. It's a pleasure to have you if you're new. This community is amazing and you have a great time here. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe once again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.